Well, howdy! Welcome there, partner, to the Fantasy Fiends podcast. I'm your host, Stevie Collier, and I'm here with my partner, Andy Pelican. And today we are honored to be with the fine and wonderful A.M. Rycroft. Give her a holler. Yeehaw!
What the hell was that, Stevie?
That actually was like, I couldn't find any Western vocabulary to use. I stuck with partner and yeehaw.
Well, Stevie Collier ruining the Fantasy Fiend podcast since 2017.
It's the Western podcast now.
Yeah,
I
that's
want to
true.
bore everybody out there. That was me. I actually like a good Western every now and then. You know, it's at my grandparents' house, and I'll sit down for like 5 minutes. Boom, I'm stuck. I want to know what. Anyway, tangent. Hi, AM. Welcome back to the Fantasy Fiends podcast.
Thank you very much.
Did I seriously almost start talking about Westerns, Andy?
You seriously did.
Oh boy, this is gonna be a good one already, and I love how like serious today's theme is. You know, I was actually gonna dress up, but I didn't.
After you did the entire last episode in faux blackface, I'm pretty sure we've sort of hit our limit.
Blackface? Somebody asked me if like it was a blackface thing. I'm like, no, it was Venom. Blackface. Oh my god.
It looked pretty blackface. So I was just specifically not going to draw attention to it the entire episode, so that anybody who thought that wouldn't immediately know that was the reason you did it.
Real quick, if you go and watch those old blackface movies where the white guys, paint themselves black, it is so cringeworthy.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so bad. What? We used to watch that in history class. So anyway, I hope everybody had a spooky Halloween. For me, my family and I, this was our, I believe, 11th or 12th year of putting up a haunted tunnel. It takes 2 days to build. And this was the first year that I turned it, or my family turned it into a cancer research fundraiser. So when you came in, you had the option to donate to cancer. It was really successful. Next year, I want to like advertise better for it, but it was good. A lot of fun. I spent all day cleaning up. Got another day or two of more cleaning up. Exciting. AM, as you probably know, we go around and we say something that exciting that's happened to us. If anyone's out there that's watching is a fan of mine and you haven't seen any work from me, that is because I am writing 5 books before I published 1, and I just finished book 2 and I'm halfway through editing it.
Ooh,
so
exciting!
Nice.
Yes, it feels good. It turned out 104,000 words, and I'm actually, when I edit, my books get longer. So now it's at 105. I'm like the opposite. I keep a lot of stuff because I'm the best writer in the world. Obviously, that's what my mom says anyway.
That's what your mother tells you. You're the best writer, boy, Stevie.
Thank you, Mommy. Warm up my bottle.
And what about you? What's something cool that happened this week?
Nothing cool happened this week, but something cool happened last week.
Tell us.
So, Andy, since we're friends on Facebook, you probably already saw me post about this like 5,000 times. But I was invited by Kevin J. Anderson to include my book, Into the Darkness, in a fantasy bundle that he put together and put up on Story Bundle. It's a website that basically it's kind of like a box set where you can set your own price. In the case of our Story Bundle, it starts at $15, but a lot of them you can set whatever price you want. And in our case, part of the proceeds are going to charity, so that's pretty cool. And it's a really great project. I was so psyched to be part of that.
That is awesome. Yeah, I've been seeing it. It looks like an amazing story bundle.
Yeah, I'm glad that I have free codes because otherwise I'd go broke, just being like, well, this is such an amazing bundle. I got to pay like $50 for it.
Yeah.
Kevin J. Anderson, are we talking about the Dune guy?
Yep.
Yes. Yeah.
Congratulations. That's freaking awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I had to pinch myself when I got that invitation. So I'm like, you mean you want my book? Really? No.
I suffer from that as well. But that is so cool, AM. Wow, just it hasn't been that long since you've been on the Fantasy Fiends podcast, and already so many awesome things are happening to you.
Yeah.
It happens when you're on our show.
Yeah. Total hashtag jealous over here.
I'm a little jealous myself, not gonna lie.
I didn't get invited to any story bundles.
Hopefully you'll get invited to the next one. That'd be cool.
Yes.
That would be cool. I just Dune was a good read. It was crazy, but it was good.
Mm-hmm.
So Andy, what about you? Congratulations again, AM.
Thank you.
Look at that.
Woo!
Nice.
You can see I got my business cards for the first time.
Very cool.
It's backwards to me, but most people should probably be able to see it. And so I got them made by the amazing CL Cannon of Fiction Atlas Press. And she did an amazing job on my my banners. She made 2 banners, one for the Hero of Darkness series and one for the upcoming Heirs of Destiny series. Because by the time I get to a convention next year, all of the books will be out. So it's just gorgeous. I can't wait to show them off.
What did the other side look like?
What's that?
What did the other side look like? White.
I can write my personal cell phone number to all those adoring fangirls.
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. I had to beat them off with a hammer last time I went to that convention.
Yeah. No, I like to have the back because I'll often write stuff down, like if I give a young author a recommendation of a link to check out like the 20 books to 50K group or something like that. Like I'll just write it on the back of the card. And I don't like having stuff on the back because I'll always end up writing stuff.
Yeah, Andy, are you AM? Is he like muffled to you?
Here and there. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, Andy.
It's fine. Is that better?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yep, there you go.
Cool.
Coming in clear. That's awesome, Andy. I need to get that done as well. But I think I'm going to wait for the Bizarre Blade series.
Nice.
AM, I don't know if you ever had this problem, but like I'm on my 7th book, and then I go back and read my 1st book, and I'm just like, oh God. Oh God, no.
Yeah. Actually,
passive. Oh no.
I know. Actually, I'm going through and revising my entire 1st series right now. So, yeah.
Are you seeing a lot of changes in your style?
Oh, yeah. The things that I learned while writing the 2nd series have really helped me identify those issues in the 1st series. So I'm going back and just kind of fleshing out those areas. I'm like, I really skated over that description a lot. So got to fix that up.
I'll do that sometimes too whenever I don't know how. So what actually to get over that, and I've said it in another podcast, is I'll bring up Google images of let's say a temple, something similar. It actually helps me out a lot. Like I'm surprised. And I also, me and my girlfriend have been doing this daily. It's we have this word of the day app that I've been using a lot. Like yesterday was germination and stuff like that. Germinate. But real quick, before we get into today's topic, I do want to sponsor this video yet again with Brandon Barr's GoFundMe. Is that cool, Andy?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so he does have terminal leukemia. He's in the final stages. Really great friend of Andy and mine. Anne, do you know Brandon Barr? Have you?
I've run across him in a couple of different groups that I'm part of, and I have been sharing his stuff. I've been happy to see that it's doing well. It seems like so.
Man, good for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going. So in the last podcast, I did link it below, and again, I will link the GoFundMe. Again, we are at 48,000, so let's try and hit that up to 100K for the family and the little boys. All right, so enough with.
And also his book, the book Rise of the Seer, is available on Amazon. I've got my copy. As soon as I finish the book I'm reading now, I'm going to dig into it because it's one of the last books we'll ever get to read of his, and he is, aside from being a genuinely decent human being, he's also an awesome author. So it's definitely worth checking it out. It's at a special launch price of 99 cents. So if you are listening or watching, pop over to Amazon, look for Rise of the Seer by Brandon Barr, click it, buy it, read it, review it. You're going to do a lot to help a family in need.
Yeah.
Fucking book.
Seriously, that book is kicking ass. So like, it's like, what is he like? He was number 25 fantasy author in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So cool. What a way to go, huh?
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Totally deserves it all. Deserves more too. So keep him in your prayers. All right. So for today's topic, we really like to offend our viewers. So what we're going to be doing is talking about female rights with two males hashing out about it. No, I'm kidding. What? Wait, what? You know what, Aaron? You take over now and you bring up the topic.
Yeah, no, it was just something that I had thought about as I was reading and also writing. A lot of times, authors have sort of swung to the opposite extreme. Now, back when we first started, or when fantasy first started coming out, women tended to be very much, stereotypical. A lot of the non-main characters, they tended to be very, flouncy and, giggly and stuff like that. Like if you think about Dragonlance, aside from the main character, Kitiara, I think her name was, all of the rest of the females were kind of barmaids, or they were, the scholar mage type or whatever, like they were fairly stereotypical. Now we get a lot more representation, a lot more diversity, but then you still have a lot of female characters who are overly feminized, and not it's not to say that feminine women are bad. On the contrary, they're awesome, but the writer that's telling the story focuses too much on sort of the wrong aspects of what it means to be a woman. And I can't really speak to what it means to be a woman, not being one. So like Stevie said, definitely not my area of expertise. But, when I read about a woman, a female character, I don't want to hear about her, why she's such a badass despite being a woman, or why, she has to strive to overcome these deficiencies of being a woman. I want to read the story about an awesome character who has strengths and weaknesses of being a human, and she just so happens to be a woman. Like not focusing so much on the femininity of a character as much as who they are, and they just so happen to be a woman.
So
yeah,
what is the title of today's topic?
The over-feminization of fantasy females.
Oh, that's good. Oh, that's really good. It's so true. It's so true.
Stevie, tell me about the female character from the Four Territories and the other one, the Fifth Territory, whatever it's called.
Oh, okay. So actually, I did exactly what we're talking about for the Dark Assassin series. Dashin, who is the princess, she is over-feminized. She's like all the other tropish women out there, except she's like really sassy, which I guess you could have. She's which is
another trope right there. Yeah, sassy woman,
I made a new character who, in my opinion, her name is Ariel. She doesn't have a last name. We don't know it yet, which means I don't know it yet, but it will come to me. She is eccentric, and she is the most complicated character I've ever written in my entire writing career. She always stuns me when I'm writing her. She's strange. She is definitely not over-feminized. In fact, sometimes I think she forgets she's a woman because she doesn't act it. And she doesn't do well with showing her emotions properly. And she doesn't dress like a woman at all. And yeah, and I don't know where I came up with her. I was like, you know what? I want to make an eccentric woman. And sometimes I don't even see her as this like pretty girl. She's very pretty, but in a very what is that girl who's gonna be playing Batwoman?
Ruby Rose.
She's like a Ruby Rose, kind of unique. Have you ever heard that guys like girls who they can see masculine traits in them, like Marilyn Monroe? Well, you know how guys can be attracted to a tomboy?
Yeah.
Kind of like that. And her face is unique looking. She's not like gorgeous, but most guys would find her, if she acted like a woman, very, very attractive.
Now, do you want me to point something out to you that sort of emphasizes the whole point of this show?
Yeah.
You just talked about all of her feminine traits. You talked about her beauty. You talked about all of the things that would be the typical descriptors for a woman. You didn't tell us about her strength. You didn't tell us about her savvy. You didn't you didn't get into the things that most people tend to think of the male characters. You immediately went to all the feminine female descriptions. And so in your mind, that's what you're focused on. These are the things that make her different from a typical woman, as opposed to this is the thing that makes her an interesting character.
Yes.
Gender's unimportant.
I emphasize those because I don't emphasize them in the book at all. These are things I see in my head, but I don't even talk about them. What I do talk about in the book and what we see in the book are all of her strengths. Her ability with herbalism, her ability with the sword, her magnificent strength. Like when you say strength, her physical strength. But the reason why I say she's so weird to me is because I don't talk about those things in the book. And our main character, when he sees this girl, he's trying to do what you just said. He's trying to look for these feminine traits, but he's not finding them. And he's actually questioning himself, why do I like this girl when she's doesn't have those qualities? But yeah, I never talk about those in the book. And that's why I brought them up, because they're almost non-existent. They're almost non-existent.
But I was just saying, the way you described this character, the words, the choice of words, the choice of the characteristics that you focused on, was the feminine, the innately feminine aspects, as opposed to telling us, so there's this character who does this, she or he, didn't even have to get into gender terms, they do this, they serve this important role, and it just so happens that they're female. Like sort of reframing the mindset that we have when we talk and think about female characters.
Do you think that's just men who do that, though? Do you think it's mostly men who will over-feminize a character, like me when I'm talking about a female, like I just did? What do you think, AM?
I don't think it's something that just guys do. I've seen a lot of discussions on Twitter, especially, where writers will be talking about strong female characters, and somebody will inevitably bring up, you don't have to make her so butch. Which, why should that even be a thing?
Wait, which is the opposite of trying to over-feminize them?
Yeah. You have certain writers who feel like, and I feel like it's at least 60% who think that female characters are written too masculine versus those who don't think that. But there seems to be that focus on, just because she swings a sword doesn't mean she can't wear a dress. And there's a lot of emphasis on making sure she's still feminine, she's still sexy. And I see that being commented on actually more by women than men. But there may be more focus, when a male writer is thinking about a character, there might be a little bit more focus in your own mind on those physical traits than there would be for a female writer, but I can't really say one way or the other. I just know that in discussions that I've seen, it's more often women that bring up, a character's femininity than male writers.
The reason why, okay, so are we thinking that fantasy is the main genre that does this? Because in the medieval times, which we're all, writing around that area, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing, and I'm ignorant, that female didn't have a lot of power, or I think I brought this up last time, and I think you said that they weren't, or maybe I dreamed that.
No, they actually did.
That's okay.
Yeah. One thing that was,
like we think of, like it's a stigma in our minds that back in fantasy times or medieval times, that women had less power and they were just sex symbols walking around making babies.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to pick on guys too much, but unfortunately, history has kind of been rewritten by male historians for a lot of time at this point. If you take a look at brewers, for example, beer making was originally done by women. Mm-hmm. And men, because women, it's a pretty lucrative thing to do in the Dark Ages and whatnot. Men looked... I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, what was written originally by women?
No. beer making.
Oh, beer making. Okay.
Yeah, brewing. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So originally women were brewers, men were not. What happened at a certain point was men saw how much money that women were making doing the brewing, and basically said, well, we're going to take over that now, and systematically tried to demonize women who were brewers. So, when we think of beer making now, we think of it as being a male thing, just like, barbecuing. Once upon a time, it was the woman outside at the grill, not the guy. And it's at a certain point, guys just kind of said, well, I'm going to take over this thing. And it was basically rewritten in our history to say that, oh, guys have traditionally barbecued, guys have traditionally brewed beer, that kind of thing. So, like I said, I don't want to sit here and try to pick on guys, but
actually, I wanna talk about that. So I came from an extremely liberal school where I got in trouble a lot by, I guess, the feminists or whatever they were, and I thought I was very I guess the word is open-minded. I was very sensitive to most things, and they would still find things in my words that upset them, and here you're saying is I don't want to crap on men a lot, and I like that. It makes me more comfortable to talk to you about stuff. And I'm just wondering, did you study? Like, how did you learn all this stuff?
I'll be honest. My spouse, she used to be a librarian, and she researches everything. If she finds a new topic that she is interested in, she will research that to its end. But she is a staunch feminist. Not to say that I'm not, but she certainly takes it to a whole new level. So I hear you when you say, you got, demonized here and there because of something you said, because, sometimes
not want to be behind it,
right.
That the person who yelled at me and, could have just taught me in a nice way.
Yeah. I mean, there are times that I have to say, okay, time out.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into a fight about it, but yeah, she gets into all these things, and she's much more the historian than I am. So anytime I have a question about, hey, would let's say would a woman be a blacksmith? Back in the medieval ages, I'll ask her, and most of the time she's like, yeah, they would, because you had single women who had to support themselves. Depending on your economic level, you didn't necessarily have somebody to take care of you. So, you had to make a living.
I have another question, but Andy, I'm sorry, you haven't been talking. Do you have something?
No, go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay. So taking Ariel, who is this like this from what you've heard me say about Ariel, how could I improve making her more of a... So what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to make them just like a person and not talk about any other female qualities, or just sprinkle?
The focus is on the human, right? The thing that makes them human. The fact that they're a woman means they're going to have their own set of issues to deal with that men won't have to if they're a man, like that. But those gender-related issues shouldn't be the focus of the story. The gender-related features shouldn't be the focus of the story. In sort of the same way that, or at least in general fantasy, sexuality isn't the focus of most stories. Sexuality can be a component of it. I mean, you read Kings of the Wild, how he treated it, and it was just like normal. Bloody Rose, the way he treated the sexuality in these stories was his way. It was a small part. Yes. So by that same token, if we stop thinking, all right, so I want to write this female character. Now, females are usually, smaller and weaker, so let's make her big and tough so that she defies gender stereotypes or whatever. Like don't worry about that. Just focus on the character that you want to write, and then worry about their gender afterwards, or don't focus on the feminine versus masculine, because the more we draw this divide in our minds, the more visible this divide becomes, which is why you have people who are so staunchly on each side of the protest or of the debate. Whereas if it's just like, all right, we're all humans, we have some physiological differences, probably some psychological differences too, but ultimately we're all human. Let's focus on the things that we do have in common, the things that we all struggle with, or that we're all dealing with in our own way. Focus on those issues, and then the gender and the sexuality just kind of build up around it, enhance those issues effectively, I'd say, but they're not the central focus. Like I noticed that, like I just read this book where the man, his whole story arc was anger, and the woman's whole story arc was cheating. Like that to me was very clearly masculine and feminine, but in the wrong way. Like it just the whole time I was reading it was like, this woman is cheating because she's a woman versus this guy is angry because he's a guy. I don't care why they're, why they do these things that just felt too stereotypical. If they would have reversed the roles, it might have been the same way. But those problems were too genderized in a way. You expect guys to be angry, and the stereotypical thing is that women are sluts, right? So the fact that the story focused on those two issues specifically, it made me not enjoy the story as much as it should, because they were too stereotypical. Does that make sense?
Beautifully said. That actually helps a lot. I do have another thing. I think why I'm having, I wouldn't say I'm having a hard time with this. I think it's because I might be wrong here. Again, this is coming from ignorance. I'm so open-minded that whenever I come to a new male character, I also describe him like I would a woman. Was he handsome? How was he built? What's he wearing? And then when I see a woman, I do the exact same thing. Is that wrong? Am I still over-feminizing and then over-masculating?
Masculinizing.
Masculinizing. I can't say it.
It's a word I just made up, so.
Oh, okay.
I think that we have to kind of look at, where does describing the character so that the reader can see that character in their own mind, and where does that over-feminizing begin? Okay. And I think what you're describing is more what we do as writers, is just make sure that the reader has a good sense of what this character looks like. Are they tall? Are they short? Are they fat? Are they skinny? That kind of thing.
Yes.
I think where I start to get a little bit irritated with writers in general is when you have a female character who's kind of what we think of as outside the box. That tomboy character you're talking about, they've got short hair, they don't necessarily like dresses, but then you have the male character who likes her despite that. And I don't mean your character, Stevie, where he can't figure out why he likes Ariel. It's to me, he's just trying to figure out why he feels the way he does. But it's when you have the male character who likes the female character who's the tomboy, who doesn't like dresses, like sports, that kind of thing, in spite of those traits.
Was a bad word. Oblivious is the right word. She is oblivious to all of that stuff. What she cares most about is herbalism and concoctions and potions.
Yeah.
But I think
show that. What?
That word choice, no matter what it is, or when it comes to this topic, despite something, when there is something despite something, it usually has a negative connotation. So maybe maybe the word choice was subconscious or it was wrong, whatever. But the fact that like, for example, in the second Hero of Darkness book, there is this knight. She's a badass, right? She like, I didn't get into describing her physically because I didn't, her physicality didn't matter beyond her abilities as a knight. But then I said she became a knight despite the male dominated society, right? So right there,
Yeah.
I created a difference and a distinction between these two things, thereby drawing attention to the gender differences. So in a way, that was the wrong action. In the new series that I'm working on now, the reigning military person of the city is a woman, right? No one gives a crap that she's a woman. She, the title is Lord of Blades. She's the Lady of Blades. No one cares. No one ever calls attention to it. She commands the elders of the blade, and it just so happens that one or two of them are women. She just says, do this. No one comments, oh, it's a woman in power. Like when you, the author, do these sort of commentaries, you put it in the mind of the reader. And that is, I think, the danger, or that is the thing that we want to try to avoid, is making these commentaries like, she was strong yet feminine. You can have a strong feminine person, like the two are not mutually exclusive. We've come to use words in our minds, like a strong jaw isn't a feminine jaw, right? It's a very masculine jaw, right? So we've created these word associations in our brain. So we've got to be careful using these things, because if we continue to perpetuate these associations, we're going to continue to perpetuate the stereotypes. Yeah, women are strong-natured and they can be strong, but then they're sassy as well. Like we don't want to keep these things going. You can have a woman who is weak or a guy who's weak, a woman that's strong, a guy who's strong. None of that matters. What really matters is the character, regardless of their gender. Like, for me, I wish that all writers would focus on the character that they want to tell, whether it, like the struggles that they're dealing with, the things that they're going through, their strength, their growth, their weaknesses, all of that, and then decide gender afterwards. Once you've got this character built, sort of the from the ground up, gender is sort of their last thing. Sexuality is sort of the last thing, because the more we focus on the distinctions, the more visible they become. So we want to sort of tear down those distinctions so that we don't feel like, man versus woman, or men are different from women. Like, we know they are, right? We know all the ways that men and women are different. So let's stop focusing on that and instead find a way sort of to reach across the aisle. Like, instead of politics, gender and sexuality, let's reach across the aisle and understand, or do our best to understand the people who have a lot of things in common with us, regardless of how many things they don't have in common with us,
Yeah, no, I think that that's a good way to go. And I think to a degree, you said that we need to stop making these distinctions because they can be harmful. I think that what's special about what we do is that we can also help shape society, in that we don't make those distinctions anymore, and they start to, our readers start to not make those distinctions anymore because of what is in our books. That's one way that authors are special. But I think you're right that if we stop focusing on where, gender roles are divided, and, forget about, making the man really masculine and the female really feminine, then we're going in the right direction. And sometimes it's just a matter of know what character you want to have, not necessarily leave the gender as the last thing. I tend to write mostly female characters. I don't know why. It just happens. But I'm more than happy for them to be whoever they want to be. It's kind of like having a kid and saying, I have certain stereotypes in my head that I want that kid to be. But at a certain point, you have to take your hands off the wheel and say, they're going to develop however they're going to develop, and just let it go. And I think we need to do that more with our characters as well. If they're evil, they're evil. If they're one of those noble bright type characters, then that's how they are. Just let it be, I guess.
Agreed.
Sounds complicated, and I think that might even be a little bit harder to get a lot of other authors to change. But luckily for me, I stumbled upon this with a Brandon Sanderson podcast. about, it wasn't over-feminization of women, but it really scared me to write my first female character. So I always put more thought, and with the first book, so much thought put into it, I actually accidentally made her over-feminized. So I think I overthunk it. But I really like what y'all are saying about just write a person, just write a human being, which I honestly think I've been doing. My big challenge right now is not writing enough female characters in my books because of that subconscious fear, which I'm going to start working on. Like female pirates in the crew, you know, stuff like that.
Well, that actually, women weren't allowed aboard ships. It was a superstition.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I forgot about that one.
So all you have to do is write a pirate story where it's not about women, where there's something else as a superstition. Now, you can't bring beer on board because beer offends whatever god of the sea there is. But like, you know, like understanding the reason behind the things, you can shatter them.
Wasn't Calico Jack? Didn't he have 2 female pirates on board that dressed like men?
Yes, I think it's Anne Bonny and the other one.
Yeah, they got away from getting hung because I think one was pregnant. Anyway, pirate tangent. Should we get to the reading, or do you guys still want to continue?
No, let's do it.
Okay.
All right, so AM, tell us about these characters we're going to be reading.
Okay, let me bring up what I sent you. Because I've looked at so many things now.
I'm confused with the emails. Andy, could you send it to me, please?
Sure, Stevie.
Sorry.
Let me see.
Is it?
There it is. Okay.
Here we go.
Okay.
For viewers of the podcast, we apologize for Stevie's lack of preparedness.
I can't find it.
I just sent it to you.
Let's see. Do you want to give us a background to the part we're about to be reading, Anne?
Sure. Okay, so this is from Corruption of Honor, Part 3, The Divide. It's my newest release out of the Corruption of Honor. Basically, Corruption of Honor is a full book that I divided into 3 parts. And this is the last part of Corruption of Honor. So in part 3, Sean Grayson, the now former apprentice knight, has escaped from the new king of her kingdom. He was basically accusing her of being a traitor for actions that she took while she was enslaved by their enemy. So she escaped and has gone on her own to try to find the missing princess, Sarah. So in chapter 9 and 10, because I had to give you guys slightly later chapters in part 3, simply because the other ones, they were too short. And there's a lot of short chapters to keep the pacing going in this book, and gave away too much. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
No spoilers. Spoiler-free zone.
Right. Spoiler-free zone. So in chapters 9 and 10, the character of Alyssa, she is a sorceress who has, she was with the kingdom's enemies, but she sort of switched sides and was working with the new king. But she has designs on Sean and is a little bit of a puppet master here. Ooh. So she's one of the few magic users in the book, and her alliances are a little bit gray. And chapter 10 is actually Sean and Sarah fleeing through the woods. They're currently being pursued by not only the soldiers of their own kingdom, but the soldiers of their enemy too. So that's where we are.
So, what do you want us to read? Like, what part do you want us to play?
You guys can just, have at it. That in chapter 9, it's Alyssa and Thomas that are interacting, and in chapter 10, it's just Sean and Sarah. So, I love watching you guys act it out. So, if you guys just want to each take one.
All right, Stevie, you take Alyssa and Sean, and I'll take Thomas and Sarah.
Okay.
All right, hit it.
Who's the narrator?
AM.
Okay. You want me to narrate?
Yes.
Okay. All right, bear with me. I'm terrible at reading this stuff out loud. Okay. Standing just outside the tree line, Alyssa watched Sean take Sarah into the woods. The chill wind blew through Alyssa's gray hair and snapped at the gray cloak she wore over her dress of the same color. Her hair and clothes remained dry, untouched by the falling rain. In fact, the raindrops bent around her. Alyssa noted the slight limp in Sean's gait as she ran, and the wind carried the sharp metallic scent of her blood. It mixed with the clean scent of the rain, but was unmistakably there for anyone searching for it, like the pack of thralls waiting for her and the princess. Alyssa sighed and shook her head. Foolish. More foolish than she had suspected Sean could be, so full of youthful arrogance and passion. She was thinking too much like a former knight, and had not stopped to consider that the master would send thralls after them the moment she took Sarah from him. She was going to get herself killed. Perhaps Sarah too, if the master willed it. Sean was on her own this time. She had exhausted her usefulness as an annoyance to the master. Alyssa had other plans in mind now. When she turned her attention back to the camp, however, she frowned inside. A tent winked out of existence, followed by another and another. She had lingered too long. Her master had clearly decided the usual method of decampment would not do. Frederick's siege on the camp must have done measurable damage to the master's forces this time. For a moment, she wondered how it was possible Frederick's ragtag army of trained soldiers and green farmers, just picking up a sword for the first time, could possibly hurt her master so much. Had he become weak without her notice? Had revenge, real, satisfying revenge, slipped from her hands years ago? It would be irreparably lessened if he was unable to put up a decent fight. Her brow wrinkled, a rare outward display of her consternation. It was a ploy. It must be. Perhaps she still needed Sean after all. As if the dark gods heard her, a group of riverens burst out of the camp, running for the woods next to her. Thomas was at the rear.
Split up!
The leader called out.
We'll converge on her in 2 groups.
She could only be Sean. All of them were just as foolish as her. The hunting thralls would be on them long before they reached Sean and Sarah. A quick obscurement spell made sure no one in the group saw Alyssa as they approached, but when Thomas drew near, she waved a hand, dispelling the illusion for him alone. He slowed to a stop, watching the others run past her, close enough to touch Alyssa. Not one of them so much as twitched a look in her direction. Alyssa closed the distance between her and Thomas. He hissed at her.
What are you doing here?
I have unfinished business to attend to.
Her tone was the same one might take if remarking on the weather.
I have no time to explain it to you.
What does that mean?
She nodded her head at the disappearing camp. He looked over his shoulder and cursed when more of the tents shrank and winked out.
Was it all just an illusion?
Hardly.
She grabbed his arm to bring his attention back to her.
Waste no time trying to wrap your mind around that which you don't understand, and make haste if you want to find Sean and Sarah.
What do you know of them?
They are running into danger. A threat Sean may not prevail against in her current state. She's dying, though she does not know it yet. Not even her thrall side can fully make up for the failings of her human side. And the thralls following her will be driven into a frenzy over the smell of her blood.
Thomas cursed under his breath.
How many?
4 at least.
He growled.
And you couldn't have done anything to stop them?
Stop barking at me, knight, and go.
He shot her a glare and started off, but Alyssa's hand snapped out and grabbed his wrist. She reached into a pouch hanging on the cord that cinched the waist of her gray dress. From it, she took out a thick vial and pressed it into his hand.
If you get to Sean in time, this will delay death long enough that you can get her to your own healers. I assume Riverend still allows casting for that type of thing. If not, there is really no hope for her at this point.
He nodded, staring at the vial.
We have those who perform magical healing, yes? But why can you not come with me? I know you can help her yourself. You've done so before.
She stared at him without answering. He set his shoulders and closed his hand around the vial.
Ah, yes, your unfinished business. Is Sean nothing more than the tool to you?
A mirthless smile curled the corners of her lips. In many ways, he was smarter than Sean, certainly more level-headed.
Fine, then. I'll clean up the mess you made.
This time she did laugh.
Trust me when I say Sean needs no help making messes. She's plenty adept at that.
Thomas grunted a begrudging agreement and set off to find his foolish friend. Alyssa took a moment to admire his broad back and the strength in his stride. How he reminded her of the one who once carried the sword Sean now wore at her side, moral and brave to the end. She ran her fingers through her long hair and turned away, forcing back the sadness she thought she had left behind long ago. Sighing, she returned her attention to what remained of the Mordwellian camp. Her master was there. Turning her back on the woods and Sean, she walked quickly in the direction of the camp to find him. He had a debt to pay.
Real quick, AM, your writing is really nice. I'm really enjoying this so far.
Thanks.
The vocabulary is so good.
I appreciate that.
I'm taking some notes on some words I want to use.
Cool. Okay, chapter 10. Sean flinched at the sharp pain in her side when she pushed away from the tree. Her eyes searched the dark for another betraying movement. The thralls must have followed their scent into the woods.
Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. Is this me?
Yes.
We have larger problems in Frederick right now.
Sarah turned to her.
What do you mean?
We aren't alone in these woods, and I don't know how much longer I can fight.
Sarah took Sean's hand away from the side she had it pressed against. Dark blood coated it from palm to fingertip.
Oh God, Sean, why didn't you not tell me you were so badly injured?
Hold on. My Microsoft Word is... I'm going to have to open this up and...
I'll keep reading it. I hoped I could at least get you to the coast.
Sarah's fingers were gentle as they slipped through the hole in the dark fabric of Sean's tunic. Nevertheless, her touch lit up a fresh fire of pain when she brushed against the stab wound. Sean sucked in a sharp breath and grabbed Sarah's wrist.
Please, stop. We need to get you help. It's too late for that.
A screeching howl cut the air. Sean and Sarah both jumped, and fear squeezed Sean's heart. The thralls were close. She drew her sword, forcing herself to ignore the pain. Sarah got behind her as another howl cut the air.
Run, deeper into the woods,
Sean told her, not taking her eyes off the dark trees in front of them. A flash of red lightning cut the sky and turned the tree trunks the color of blood for an instant.
I'll hold them off as long as I can. Try to find the coast, but watch for slave ships. The Barnation slavers are trading in Mordwell's prisoners now. I can't just leave you on your own. Nor can you fight them as I can. Please, just go.
Sarah hesitated a moment longer before she did as Sean told her. An overwhelming sense of history repeating itself washed over Sean. She told herself she and the thralls would be on more equal footing this time, despite her injuries. Gripping her sword tightly, she summoned the thrall in her one last time. Sarah's survival depended on her fighting until her last breath. She would give them no less than that. A dark fire blazed to life inside her. She reveled in the way it burned away the cold and pain until neither was more than a dull ache at the back of her mind. Strength rose in her again. She raised her fingers to her mouth and whistled, long and shrill. The sound echoed across the landscape. Only a heartbeat passed before a pale figure appeared between the tree trunks in front of her. Sean met its dead, white gaze with a grim smile.
Very nice. Thank you, AM.
Sure.
Well, awesome. So I think it's about time we have to head off. So, AM, where can people find your work?
You can find it on Amazon, Kobo, pretty much anywhere you get ebooks or print books. I haven't quite gotten on the audiobooks just yet, but if you want a full listing of everything I have and where to find it, you can go to my website. It's writinginadarkroom.com.
That's a cool website name. So you're wide then?
Yes, I'm very wide.
Don't get many of that.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Andy, anything else you want to say before we end this podcast?
That's it for me. It was an awesome topic. Thank you for joining us, AM.
Yes.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Great topic. I learned a lot. So thank you again, AM, for being on the Fantasy Fiends podcast. I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Listeners, viewers, thank you guys so much for listening or watching. We really appreciate you. Remember to subscribe, because once we hit 300 subscribers, Andy is going to shave half of his beard and his eyebrows. No, not his eyebrows. So again, thank you guys so much. AM, thank you so much. And we will see you next Thursday for another Fantasy Fiends podcast episode. Good night, everyone.